8. Welcome. Morning, Jim. Sorry, afternoon, Jim. Afternoon, Lorna, Robert, Jan, Barbara, Bob, Neil, Gordon, Barry, Tina. Yep, things are moving along nicely, folks. Morning, Ian. Morning, Tommy. Morning, Kirsty. Sorry, afternoon, folks. I keep saying morning. Get up early. I was out working this morning, so only finished just after 12 there. Morning, Keane. And Dylan. David and Dylan, sorry. David and Dylan Keane. Hey, who else we got on? Hey, hi, Alison. Up there in Orkney. Fiona. Stephen. Right, seems to be enough of you on board, so let's get this news review underway. It's Indy Truck Davey out the truck not home in his office in Salford, North Lanarkshire, where it is overcast and it's about 3 degrees, on and off with snow and rain, you know, bit annoying. That's the forecast for Salford, North Lanarkshire. You want to know what the weather's like where you are, or could get rain bloody one day. Alright, news review for the 26th of the 12th, 2023 for the colony of Scotland. Now, there's no lot today, but it's to get me back into the rhythm. We'll be back at the normal time at 11:15 tomorrow, going forward. Okay, right, well, Monday, Boxing Day, as you all know, it started with 2 themes in the rags. King's Speech and Nurses' Strikes. Now, I'm a Republican myself, so I didn't watch it. Didn't watch Chuck's inaugural speech, or inaugural Christmas speech to the nation of England. Then he was up here watch it, so we don't really get much of what he's saying. But apparently, the idiot in the gilded cage with the big lugs paid tribute to his mammy, because he was a bit of mammy's boy. And of course, he warns us all of tough times ahead. Man in golden cage, surrounded by pomp, ceremony, and plenty of dough, tells the rest of us it's going to be difficult. Isn't that good of him? That he admires our spirits as they get broken and as we go hungry and can't afford to heat our houses. You didn't watch it either, Anne. Anyway, that's a King's Speech for you. Basically, man worth more money than sense, with more possessions than any person has the right to hold, tells the rest of you, suck up, back up, things are going to get difficult. Mental. Still snowing less than Eagle Eye, we still get snow here and all that. Anyway, that was the King's Speech for you. Suck it up, peasants, my government's made an arse of things and you're going to have to suffer. Aye, Margaret, you're right. The King was speaking to himself as far as Scotland's concerned, then he was paying attention. Now, on the nurses' strike, well, it's a wee bit more than nurses' strike, folks. But the nurses are the centre of attention at the moment. But there's a policy down there in England where the government just won't negotiate with the unions. They've decided that the peer review bodies decide how much should be awarded, and they're not going to budge on it. They're not even talking to the trade unions. Ministers for all the departments are not talking to the trade unions at all. As far as they're concerned, the peer review bodies have recommended 3-4%. Of course, the board down there in the public sector, some as low as 2% actually. And that's it, the government's no shifting. It won't negotiate. And according to the papers here in Scotland, they're the holiday period there. The Scottish government's going to impose at 7.5% pay rise on people. 7.5 up to 11.2, depending on your pay grade in the NHS. But I can't see that happening. I don't see the trade unions backing down on this one. It could be the end of this government if they don't sit and negotiate with the trade unions. If they're just going to say, peer review body says, end of story, then they're in for a shock because the trade unions will take action. We're already in the middle of a winter of discontent, and that's going to get worse. Much worse. As I say, as they try and bulldoze the public sector down there, then the trade unions are going to have to flex their muscles. They may even have to get together and organise a general strike. But Sunak said it himself, no negotiating. We're not talking to them. Peer review bodies have made their recommendations. That's it. There is. So basically, the English/Westminster government has decided it's going to smash the trade union movement here in the UK. Best of luck with that, idiots. You've made an arse of everything else so far. Man. Yep, the peer review bodies have made it quite clear that just because they're making a recommendation doesn't mean the government can't do something else. So, as I say, the Tories are determined to crash, break the trade unions. They're hell-bent on reducing workers' rights and workers' protections. And we'll see more of that in 2023 as they go ahead with their bonfire of what EU regulations. We'll see things like the Working Time Directive, which the EU adopted from our Factory Act, scrapped. And you'll see all your protections disappear. So, they won't negotiate with the rail workers. The government's instructed rail companies not to negotiate with rail workers. The government down that road is no negotiating with anybody in the public service sector. They're telling them this is what you're going to get as per peer review body. Peer review bodies made it clear these are only recommendations. The government can do something different, but they ain't going to do nothing different. All right. Right, moving on. Yesterday, what else was in the news? Idiot Sunak serving food at a soup kitchen, asking homeless people if they work in the City of London. I don't know who's advising this guy on his image, but Jesus, having a billionaire stoning, ladling up soup and asking dossers if they work in the city. Wow. Talk about out of touch. A team of people run about him, trying to make him look good, and he failed miserably. I mean, if it was a good idea to put a multi-millionaire stroke billionaire into a soup kitchen. Wow. The guy's family's got enough money to feed the whole of the UK every day for years, many times over. And then he's standing there patronising poor people on the telly. Anybody thought that was a good idea is an absolute bam. I don't know who's advising Sunak, but it's definitely not doing anything for his image. If you'd have seen the man roll up with a truck full of food to a food bank and it came out his own pocket, then maybe change your attitude towards the swine a wee bit. But not much. But standing there serving up what other people have given to the soup kitchen. Mental. Imagine asking a dosser if he works in the city. Guy's homeless. No got a tosser his name. He's in a soup kitchen. And Sunak's asking him if he works in the city of London. Wow. I don't know who's advising this guy, but Jesus Christ. Ah, guy. Chris, you don't often get to watch me live. Hi, welcome. Right, hey. Also, in the news yesterday, England to abandon all NHS targets. All targets, the Westminster government's going to scrap them in England. Why? They're not meeting any. And they've no aspirations to meet any. The intention is to run down the English NHS. And that means killing off Scottish and Welsh's NHS while they're at it. Because as they defund the one in England, they've consequentials going to Wales or Scotland. So, abandoning targets in the NHS down that road isn't just to hide how poorly their NHS is performing. It's to run it down, run it into the ground and make it easier. They're going to convince the people of England that the NHS is no longer affordable, and if they want healthcare, they're going to have to take out private insurance. What do the people think that the national insurance is? We already pay insurance for healthcare and things like that. I think mine runs at about 30 quid a week, my national insurance. Wow. James, why is it not sorted out the need to have soup kitchens and food banks? Hey, why? Sunak's a billionaire, doesn't care. We're cattle to the bams, you know that? Only educated enough to operate the machines so that they can make money and fill out the paperwork. That's the majority of people. And that's the way they like it. And that's the way they intend to keep it. That's why you have to pay for university tuition in England. Whereas here we value educating our young people because we understand that an educated population is the future. But as I say, they're scrapping all NHS targets down that road. That way, they can look up this road to be we've got targets and say, Scotland's NHS is doing terrible. Look to Wales, where we've got targets and say, Wales NHS is doing terrible, but we won't be able to see the state that their NHS is in. Because there'll be no stats. Thanks, Paul. Nice to have you on live with us, alright? Right. Back here in Scotland, it's revealed the extent at which the energy companies are fleecing the public purse. Energy costs for running schools and hospitals went through the roof. NHS Orkney's energy costs has just went up 400% in the last 5 years. It will be similar across the rest of Scotland. Maybe not quite as high, but almost. And we wonder why there's no money to pay nurses or to give teachers a whopping 11% pay rise. Well, the answer is it's gone into the energy companies' pockets. No cap on businesses, no cap on council facilities, no cap on hospitals, no cap on schools. So, police, the cost of running all these facilities have gone up phenomenally. But as I say, study yesterday tells us that NHS Orkney, electricity costs, heating costs and everything have went up by 400% in the last 5 years. Time to nationalise the energy. It's outrageous that these big energy companies are scalping our public services to the detriment of our people. Bad enough that they're scalping householders, but when they're stripping huge amounts out of the public purse, then there has to be something done about it. Right. Also, Monday, no trains, as RMT were on strike again. And anyway, that brings woe to businesses right across Scotland, apparently. Apparently, the sales started on Boxing Day. Sales never bloody end. The sales are on all year round. But apparently, the sales started Boxing Day. I mind the sales used to start in January. But you're right, don't you? Not like the sales ever end. So businesses are no chuffed that there was a strike on Boxing Day. Well, get used to it, businesses. Because if I was in the RMT and I was taking straight action against this government, I'd be doing it every weekend. So towns and high streets are going to suffer. But if you want to get the attention of businesses and get them putting pressure on the government to make a settlement with you, then that's no bad thing. But hey, what this UK government seems to be misunderstanding is that there's huge public support for these strikes. Huge public support for these strikes. And when the nurses, they walk out here in Scotland, if they have to, then there will be massive public support. We'll get a wee bit more up further into the report. Not there's that much further to go, folks. It's not going to be a long one today. So see, this is just to get us back up and running again. Right, also Monday. Delay to free school meals being rolled out to primary sixes and primary sevens here in Scotland. How's today we? What we're just talking about, there's less money in the system. Energy companies are skinning it massive. So it's going to take a wee bit longer to clear the bag, to get enough in the budget to roll this particular plan out. Teachers are not happy with the idea that it's been delayed to 23-24. But we've just spoke about how energy companies are gouging the public purse. If they weren't gouging the public purse by up to 400% for energy costs, then the money would be there to feed the kids. But at this point in time, it's gone on keeping the places warm, heated, lit. Nuts. And that's also money that could have been used to pay teachers. So teachers out there must be aware of this, that the gouging of the public purse is having an impact on what can be offered to them as well. Them's the facts. When it's costing up to 400% more than what it was 5 years ago to heat, light, and keep the school facility open, if schools and hospital facilities open, then there's less there available for other things like feeding children. So this story and the last story are linked. And public servants must be aware of this. After all, somebody's going to sign the cheque to pay the bills. Must be. Right, and the last thing I want to talk about for Monday, because there isn't that much of it before we go into the smallest papers, is apparently Wee Govey wants a wee bit more soul in the housing sector. Apparently planning applications to build stuff in England are pretty mundane. He wants a wee bit more flair, a wee bit more exciting in the planning of new estates. Well, people can't afford to buy a house. The construction industry is in contraction. Banks are no lending, and where they are lending, the rates are too high for people to borrow. Simple as that. And Wee Govey wants a bit more flair in the housing market. Flair generally means cost. Builders are going out of business at a rapid rate of knots for various reasons. Lack of employees, an increase in costs for materials, shot up by huge amounts since Brexit, because a lot of these materials were sourced in other parts of Europe. Timber costs went through the roof. Cement costs went through the roof. So, Wee Govey wants more flair in the housing market. What Wee Govey actually wants is hobbles. Wee Govey is one of the ones that voted down builders in England having to build houses to a standard which are fit for human habitation, and landlords in England having to keep their portfolios at a standard that's fit for human beings. So there's interesting for you. Man with more money than brains wants more flair in construction. Apparently wants to go back to more traditional architecture because it had a wee bit more flair. The Georgians and the Victorians built some really nice houses. There you go. So they're the odd bits of crap that was flying about that passed for news yesterday. But you see, whoever's advising Sunak, he wants to fire them, asking a homeless man in a soup kitchen if he works in the city. Oh, bang! And of course, the government doing that road intends to kill off the trade union movements and do away with collective bargaining. Right, let's have a look and see what the papers are going to say today. They say it is going to be a short one because we're starting the silly season. They won't be as long as what they normally are. Right, in today's paper, the Scotsman has 2/3 of Scots set to back nurses if they strike. I just said that. There would be huge support for the nurses, especially after the couple of years we've just been through. So, according to the Scotsman, public support strengthens for doctors, and it is. And we are partly solid behind tax rises here in Scotland in order to help pay for public services. The Times has patient lies in A&E all Christmas to get a bed. Aye. But I bet you they've seen within the 4 hours that the A&D department had, but just couldn't move them on. Their answer has, the Daily Record, their answer has, 999 staff told us to drive stroke mum to hospital ourselves. Family of Moira, 89, hit by ambulance shortage. Well, people are ill this Christmas, this winter. The Eye has, Britain faces junior doctor crisis as strikes loom in 2023. Don't pay public servants what they're due or what they need to be able to afford to live, then you're going to get strike action. The Scottish Daily Mail has a epidemic of childhood obesity in Scotland. That's all right. There's no be that for very long. We just talk about kids going feckin' hungry, parents staying without to feed their children. Obesity is not going to be a problem over the next 10 years because this is a depression we're going into, folks, not a recession. The Herald, suicidal alarm seekers feel abandoned by Home Office. And apparently, asylum seekers who were shipped to live in Greenock feel they've been abandoned by the Home Office. Let's get the straight of it. Asylum seekers, the poor, the homeless, people using soup kitchens have all been abandoned by the UK government. As for asylum seekers, well, we've seen the way that they're treating them. I've heard they've been caught, they were abandoned and were known in the streets of London, for Christ's sake. The National has a stain on our democracy. Shepherd hits out a loophole that lets peers such as Clark have a seat at Holyrood, but not in Commons. So apparently, if you're a lord or a lady here in Scotland, you can run to be a politician in the Holyrood Parliament. The Looney Rag, the Express has BBC splashes out 7 million on no logos. Is it any wonder the BBC took months to say how much its rebranding cost? Maybe 10 months to say how much its rebranding cost is, because generally they have a ballpark figure. They get the design done, and then they've got to look at what they've all got to do, where it's going to go on. So the Telegraph has energy companies holding customers billions. And the Telegraph says energy companies are sitting on customers' cash following an investigation by the paper. It claims that some gas and electricity companies are still hiking direct debits despite some customers being in credit, being ripped off, folks. What's the Looney Rag the Star got for us today? Bonkers weather, blizzard of blizzards, warning, frozen iguanas falling out of the trees. Iguanas? The Daily Star of Scotland's got iguanas falling out the bloody trees. It's a Daily Star. Bonkers! There's no iguanas in Scotland. What does this say? Blizzard of lizards. In the headlines on the Daily Star, as it leads with the story claiming that the cold blast of weather sweeping parts of the US has led to iguanas falling out of trees. And why would we want to know about iguanas falling out of trees in America here in Scotland? On the front page of one of the Daily Rags, for Christ's sake. Yeah, you've got to love the Star. That runs one of the most bonkers stories you ever heard. Yeah, absolutely nuts. Right, folks, that's what I've got for you today. I hope you found some of it interesting, some of it informative. Although it's silly season, the real news starts up again today, so we'll go on it. And so far, I've heard that the idiots in the Labour Party and the idiots in the Tory Party are calling for the Health Minister's head here in Scotland because of waits of up to 12 hours. That's the minimum wait in Tory England. And NHS Wales isn't doing any better. And they want our Health Secretary to quit. This is what we call nae whataboutery. We're not allowed to make comment about what's happening where their parties are in control, but they're allowed to bounce on our public services because they're not in power. If you see me looking down like that now and again, folks, it's because I'm looking at the comments on Facebook. I'm looked at my computer again. I've got to look at it on the phone. All right. So that's it today, folks. Just to get us up and running again, we'll be back tomorrow with a review of what's happened in the news today. As I say, the big story so far is that we get the figures out each week here in Scotland on how well A&E's doing. A&E's not doing well. It's not A&E's fault. It goes right through the healthcare system. You get A&E, you get seen within the 4 hours, they can't pass you on for further treatment because of bed blocking in the hospitals. And that's because people don't want to work in health and social care because the wages crap. Scottish Government's just invested 50 million quid in health and social care to try and help clear that bed blocking. Hopefully things will get a wee bit smoother and a wee bit faster. Right, okay then. Remember, support the independent broadcasters, broadcasting live, Independence Live, Indie Live Radio, Caledon Media, Trues Radio, iScot Magazine, and the National Newspaper. And if these vloggers and bloggers out there have a crowdfunder on the go and you've got a couple of shekels to throw in the pot, then please do. Some of them do some fantastic stuff. I don't want your money. But if you like what I do, then you can share it around. As you know, I don't share it around myself. But if you're sharing it on Facebook, give me a couple of minutes to make the audience public on my phone, boys. Okay. Now remember, we are in the middle of a respiratory disease crisis here in Scotland. Winter respiratory diseases are back with us with a bang. So if you're feeling a wee bit under the weather, mask up. Show a wee bit of social conscience. All right, last 2 bits of guidance is masking in enclosed public spaces and washing hands and surfaces regularly. Okie dokie. Now, as I say, if you're not feeling well, mask up. Show a bit of social consciousness. That's it for the day, folks. We'll be back tomorrow with a full episode, provided we can scrape enough gunk together out of what passes for news in the silly season. Okay, you look after yourselves. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again. Have a nice day.